All the pigs that didn't have lung edema survived toward the end of the study, while the only 2 pigs from the group with a lung edema survived, which is 14% only. So is that all the global strain that matter, or we should look into the components of the strain that happened? So the same group did a further study when they tried to look at the component of the strain by using a various combination of the tidal volume and peak. Tidal volume will represent the dynamic component of the strain, and the peak will give some volume above the FRC, and that's called static strain. So the 4 groups are the group that was ventilated with 0 peak, and that's going to be all dynamic strain, to the group that ventilated with a large static strain and a very small dynamic strain. And the results are, in the group of the animals that were ventilated with the largest dynamic strain with 0 peak, all the lung weights increased. And the white circle represents the animal that died. So all of them died. While the animals that were ventilated with the largest static strain and with the minimal dynamic strain didn't have a lung weight change. Although in those in between, there's going to be some increase in lung weight and some that hasn't changed in lung weight. There are 2 more pigs that died in that study, but the lung weight hasn't changed, meaning that the cause of death was not lung edema. And this is the pictures to show that the left lung is a lung that were ventilated with 100% of the dynamic strain and 0% of the static strain. Tidal volume was very large, at about 700 ml with 0 P, and the lung weight has increased double up. And the right lung looks almost normal. Same as the inflammatory markers is increasing when the majority of the strain was composed of only the dynamic strain. So the large global strain may or may not cause the ventilator-induced lung injury. It depends on its dynamic and static component. So smallest dynamic and largest static strain may prevent tissue damage by lowering stress. And stress depends on strain amplitude and rate that we deliver that strain. And if the force applies slowly on the pre-stress level, the lung tissue deformation will be smoother, more uniform, and less injurious. And I would like to compare the straight and straight to this. Why it has something to do with the fishing. And for God's sake, all the fish that I killed in the past, please forgive me. I don't fish anymore. So, why can't we catch a big fish with only the line sent in, or the spinning reel raw? We cannot do that because the line, it just acts like collagen. It doesn't have deformation capacity, and the critical stress threshold is very low. So if you catch a big fish with only the line, what happens is that you're going to be pulled into the water, or the line will break. So what we need is we need a fishing rod, which acts like an elastin. There's some deformation potential in that fishing rod that allows some shape change, meaning that bending, and some elastic recoil potential to return its shape to the straight rods. So what we do, even if we have the fishing rods, if you apply the force too fast and too strong, like that, the rod's gonna break. So usually when we catch the fish, what we do is that we apply some pre-stress, we reel to shorten the line, and then we smoothly to apply a dynamic strain and allow some elastic recoil of the rods. So that's how I explain the stress and strain. So how about the stress and strain in the ARDS that were mechanically ventilated? And this study by Schumel, the question was that is the tidal volume when it's scaled to the ideal body weight, or the peak titles are good enough surrogates for the stress and strain, or should we measure the stress and strain directly? So the group studied the patients, about 80 patients, 30 patients in the control arms, and 50 patients with the ALI and ARDS patients. all of them were sedated and paralyzed and were ventilated at 2 peak level, which is 5 and 15, and various combination of tidal volume of 6, 8, 10, and 12 mil per kilo. And then they measured the specific elastin, stress, and strain from each combination of the PEEP and tidal volume. And what they found is that as the lung disease become more severe from the control group to the ARDS, the airway plateau pressure increasing, and the airway plateau pressure is also increasing as the tidal volume is increased. Same as when the PEEP is increased, the airway plateau pressure increased. And the lung stress and the global strain demonstrate the same way, is that as the disease become more severe, the stress and strain is much larger. And as well as the tidal volume increase or the PEEP increase, the stress and strains become larger significantly. However, if you notice, the specific lung elastins again are not different amongst the diseased lung and non-diseased lung. And that's because of the FRC, or the functional lung size, is much smaller in the ARDS group compared to the control group. And when we look at the stress between 10 to 15 and a strain between 1 to 2, there are much overlapping between each combination of PEEP and tidal volume. So study conclusion was that when the tidal volume was normalized to the ideal body weight, it is a poor surrogate for the strain due to high variability of the functional residual capacity. And the delta transpulmonary pressure itself cannot be predicted from airway pressure, meaning plateau pressure, due to great variability of the lung elastins to the ratio of lung elastins to the elastin of the total respiratory system. And the specific lung elastins of ARDS are similar to the control subjects. So the ARDS lungs are small and not stiff. This is confirmed the baby lung concept. The limitation for the bedside practice in terms of measuring of the stress and strain is that the esophageal pressure measurement is difficult and not routinely done by many institutions. And there's also some technical limitation also. And we don't normally measure the FRC at the bedside, although it can be measured using various techniques like nitrogen multiple breath washout, helium dilution, or sometimes nowadays we have some ventilators that incorporate some modules and formulas to measure and calculate the FRC. So it actually can be done non-invasively without interruption of the mechanical ventilation, and it's demonstrated in this study when they use those formula to calculate all the stress and strain they want to know. But they have to know the functional residual capacity or the expiratory lung volume when the PEEP was added. And then they just use either the nitrogen multiple breath washout or use the ventilator that incorporate the FRC measurement capability. And once they get those numbers, then they can calculate the rest. And they did this test in a group of the patients, in 11 cabbage patient, 9 neuro critical care patient, and 6 lung disease patient, ventilated with a pressure control ventilation with a limit pressure at 30, lower than 30 centimeter water, with the decremental PEEP titration from 15 to 5 and to 0 PEEP. And each PEEP level, they measured in expiratory lung volume. They calculate the stress, strain, and specific lung elastin at each PEEP level, and what they found is that all parameters can be calculated non-invasively without measurement of the esophageal pressure or interruption of the mechanical ventilation. Now, this is probably going to be the last part. I'm going to talk about the driving pressure. So last year, Professor Amato has published a very high impact article in the High Impact Journal with his belief that even with the lung protective ventilation strategy with a low tidal volume, limited plateau pressure, and higher PEEPs improved survival. However, the evidence were conflicting, and he believed that in the concept of the baby lung, that the functional lung size in ARDS is not equal to the total lung size based on the ideal body weight. And actually, the compliance of the respiratory system or the lung depends on those functional lung size and not the total lung size. So his hypothesis was that maybe the driving pressure, which is a P plateau minus the P, which is the tidal volume divided by the compliance, would be a better index associated with the survival. So he did a very, sorry, I have to take more time a little bit. So he did a very complex statistical model called multi-level mediation analysis of the 9 landmark, 5 landmarks low tidal volume trial and 4 landmarks PEEP trial. And with this model, I have to go into this illustration so people can understand better. So let's say we have the A on the left and B patient on the right. I just make the number up. The compliance in the patient's A could be 30, and compliance in the patient B could be 10 ml per centimeter water. If we subject those patients to 6 ml per kilo or tidal volume of 420, these are the calculated driving pressure and plateau pressure. And if you subject the same patients to a tidal volume of 700 or 10 ml per kilo, and those are the calculated parameters. So you can see that the delta P can be different even in both patients as the disease severity become more severe, meaning that the CRS is reduced, or the driving pressure could be different in the same patient if subject to a different level of the tidal volume. So what Professor Amato found is that the driving pressure is the strongest independent variable that could predict the mortality. And neither the tidal volume or the PEEP by itself could predict the mortality. And when the tidal volume is scaled to the compliance or the driving pressure, it's when it can demonstrate the survival benefit when the driving pressure is lowered. This just shows the same thing. He tried to resampling the data and try to match the peak, try to match the driving pressure, and try to match the plateau pressure. The only thing that can demonstrate this survival benefit is when the driving pressure is reduced. I think I'm running out of time now. So my conclusion is low tidal volume and higher PEEP only improve the survival if only the delta P is decreased, and the delta P is a surrogate for the dynamic strain. I'm gonna skip this slide and go into my summary. This is just to show that the delta P is correlate well with the delta trans pulmonary pressure and correlate well with the stress developed. So let me just go through the summary then. So in summary, the tidal volume, the P plateau, and the PEEP were traditional parameters used to provide balance between optimal gas exchange and prevention of villi. The tidal volume P plateau are inadequate surrogates for lung stress and strain. The delta P and the component of the strain, which is dynamic or static strain, are parameters of interest according to current evidence. And less severe disease might tolerate a higher strain, so that confirmed the baby lung concept. And trying to maximize lung recruitment with recruitment maneuver and PEEP to increase the functional lung size and the compliance might help lower the dynamic strain or the delta P for a given tidal volume. And for that, I think one size not fit all. And thank you for your attention.